Hey everybody, I just thought before we aired our next episode of Southbridge Street Live that I would take a few minutes to offer my gratitude to our presenting sponsor, Aloe Soft, to our newest sponsor, Atzenhofer, who is sponsoring our Best of the Best, which airs on the weekend. And then to also just make a statement that says, you know what, behind every good show, there are lots and lots of people that are behind us supporting Southbridge Street Live, like my producer, Jake, and my assistant, Jim. And then, of course, all the hosts that we have who have created their own pilot shows for you guys to view and are waiting for sponsorship. And then a couple of personal shout outs to people who help me behind the scenes, like Ashley from Cotton Bells, who helps with wardrobe, and Stephanie from Beehive, who helps me with hair. And then, of course, Rachel from Bright and Go, who helps keep my smile bright and beautiful. And then, of course, I wanted to take just a second to thank you, the viewers, because without you, this could not be possible. So just a shout out for everyone to say thank you on behalf of all of us from Southbridge Street Live. Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to our first edition of a small group discussion. So this is small group. Today we're going to be talking about affordable housing, which is definitely a topic of discussion that we probably won't be able to cover in its entirety with just the five of us, but I'm very, very honored that you all took your lunch break to come and sit with me. Today I have Rick Vila. You are the Victoria County Long-Term Recovery Group guy.
Well, development coordinator, yes.
Development coordinator. I know, but I always feel like you're like he's the touch point for Victoria County Long-Term Recovery. I welcome you here. Thank you so much. Now, Brittani O'Connor-Dearlum, you are here from AMCAP Home Loans, and I do welcome you, and I thank you for running in and being a part of this. You took a chance to be here. I love it. And then, of course, this is Marco Pras of RE/MAX. He is a realtor here in the community. And last but not least, I have Skye Sanchez of Providence and Prosperity. And today we're just going to give an initial conversation, a very relaxed discussion about affordable housing. But before I begin, Rick, I'm going to start with you and just say, tell me a little bit about Victoria County Long-Term Recovery Group.
Well, we're a nonprofit organization. We actually started up right after Hurricane Harvey.
Yes.
And we continue to assist families in their recovery efforts. Many of the families that got impacted, some had major damage where they might need a complete rebuild of their home. So we've assisted, in that capacity. And then we have other families that may have just had some personal property damage. Mm-hmm. And we help out with replacement of some of the appliances or some of the furniture. And we continue to go ahead and help families in Victoria County.
Thank you. Brittani?
I'm with AMCAP Home Loans. We recently opened here in Victoria in March, my husband and I. We're just a mortgage company. We're trying to help as many people as we can to purchase new homes.
Thank you.
I'm a real estate agent and a property manager here in Victoria over 10 years. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
I am Executive Director of Providence and Prosperity, and what we do is we bridge community members to resources to help them get the little bit of help that they need here in the community.
So I'm going to kind of start with why I asked you guys to come and why I'm going to start these type of small group discussions, particularly with affordable housing. I was recently at city council meetings. There is a city ordinance regarding homelessness that is on the table for city council members. It's a tough topic. But one of the things that I kept noticing, just as a citizen attending the meetings, were many people who came to the table or came to the microphone said, we really don't have an issue with homelessness. What we have an issue is affordable housing in our community. And I wanted to know if we could maybe talk about what you've seen or what you've all seen, but I'll start with you because you're right here and I can pick on you easy.
Okay, that's fine.
You shouldn't have sat here, buddy.
Thank you.
But what is
in
your feeling?
our particular business, and what we do, and we assist families. There are a number of families that are looking for temporary housing because one of the programs and one of our partners is the General Land Office. So some of those residents that got impacted, they have the opportunity to have a new home built. And during that time period, they're looking for temporary housing. So our disaster case managers have reached out to agents like Marco Porras and many others, in the community and hotels to try to find some affordable housing on a short-term basis.
Right.
So we've
Right.
helped out in that degree.
Well, what about for you? What are you seeing when it comes to people coming in for home loans?
That's kind of a difficult question to answer because we have people just really across the board. I was at that same meeting, and it's a really tough topic. But as far as affordable housing, what I'm finding is the majority of people looking for affordable housing are looking at FHA financing. And FHA is an excellent program.
Tell me about FHA.
Okay,
we're going to educate.
FHA financing allows people to purchase with higher debt to income ratios. So that means either A, their income is a little bit lower, or B, their debt is a little bit higher. And so that ratio is off a little bit for conventional financing. So FHA tries to fill in the gap there.
Sure. Tell me
Also-
what FHA is, the acronym.
Oh, FHA stands for Federal Housing Authority.
Thank you very much.
So it is a government-backed mortgage type program loan. There's a couple different government programs, but FHA is the most common.
Okay.
And then the other one you have is conventional. So conventional financing has tighter restrictions, tighter guidelines as far as debt to income is concerned, and credit scores.
Right.
So FHA does not have a minimum credit score, so it really tries to fill in the gap for low to moderate income families who, might have had certain circumstances that lead to credit not being the best, right? So that's wonderful on that side as far as allowing buyers to purchase without having the most perfect credit profile. They really do a great job with that. The flip side of that is when they do want affordable housing, when you want a really low payment, of course, you're going to have to be looking at a lower priced home.
Right.
What I'm seeing is that in Victoria, there aren't as many homes that follow FHA's guidelines for the house. So conventional is then more relaxed on the guidelines for the house itself, whereas FHA is stricter.
Can I stay
So-
with you for just a second
Yeah,
and
of
ask you about, because you said, I'm not sure. And then I'm like, yes, it's exactly what I was hoping
Okay.
for. What are the guidelines? What do you mean by guidelines?
Oh gosh, the guidelines are 99 pages of 12-point font. So to answer that question would be really difficult. But things like, we have one right now that's a VA program, but they both follow the same guidelines. VA
Okay.
is for veterans.
Right.
And they do, I think, a really wonderful job of helping out our veterans, but they also have stricter guidelines for the house.
Sure.
So the point of all this is really to protect the buyer, because typically when you have a buyer that has either worse credit or lower income, not typically, but a lot of times they're maybe not going to be as informed as some other buyers because typically, they're working a little bit more. They don't have the time sometimes that very affluent buyers have to sit around and watch the news all the time, is what
Right.
I've found. That's just
Right.
my personal opinion.
Sure.
So the FHA and VA guidelines are really there to protect the purchaser, right? Because there's things that they may overlook that they might not be paying attention to or might not see. We have a VA right now that we came back on the appraisal and a step has to be fixed because it's a tripping hazard. A normal purchased home is like, oh, well, there's that board is sticking up a little bit. It's no big deal, right? So that's an example. Broken windows, that's an example. And not broken like there's a hole through it, but like there's a crack in it.
Right.
That has to be fixed. It could be sheetrock. It could be flooring. Marco would know a lot about this too. There's a lot of different things
Okay.
it could be. And where that becomes a problem is number one, the home won't pass FHA inspection.
Okay, I
Number
see.
two, the person that's selling that house is typically going to be in the same position as the person that's buying that house.
I see.
They don't have a ton of extra funds to go through and fix it all. Neither does the person that's buying it. So that's where I see that we run into a problem with those really, with those more affordable
Affordable homes.
homes.
I see. Marcus, what are you seeing as far as from real estate, from rental?
The biggest issue is that to find property owners or investors that they're willing and able to do short-term leases. You know, most people, they want to have a year lease.
Okay.
Because they'll see more profit, you know.
I see.
I have my personal opinions with the homeless crisis here in town, but I don't want to get into the politics of it.
Sure.
But I think we need to address it just for the reason that they're human beings, you know. They're
Yes.
people, and I can see both sides of the aisle on that situation, but at the end of the day, we have to address it. And I don't think just by shutting down things will help out on the long term, because we're always going to have that issue unless we address them properly.
What is, in your opinion, and Brittany, I mean, we can all discuss this. Is there a shortage of housing available straight down the board? What about apartments? Because I have to say that since you know, we've had some influx and up and downs with oil and gas, but of course with the shells and, you know, all of that, you know, I saw apartments going up everywhere.
Yes.
And when I first moved to Victoria, you know, I rented an apartment. At that time, it was reasonable. You know, but I also was in college and working, so I had college loan. I mean, I was assisted in that way, so it didn't seem like it was completely out of reach. So my assumption then was how incredible for Victoria. We were getting all of these apartments being built, you know, and then of course, especially after Harvey. So in my mind, the more apartments that you have, you know, then you have a stronger playing field when it comes to negotiating rent. And people tell me that renting an apartment is
Ridiculous.
absolutely ridiculous.
Well, if I may,
yes.
so, you know, we had the oil boom. Obviously, hotels were full, so there were more apartments being built, but then Harvey happened.
Right.
So a lot of properties had severe damage, and some of them, they get government help or aid.
Right.
And so they have to fill up those guidelines, so when they go and rebuild, they have to be back in shape. So a lot of apartments went out of line after Harvey.
Oh,
so that created
I
a
see.
crisis on the housing market here. But thankfully, now there's more apartments coming into line. So I think we have a more stable market in the near future just for that reason. But it's just that old game, supply and demand.
Right.
You know.
Right. Same game. Skye, what about for you? What are you seeing in your organization for you know,
We are
affordable housing?
seeing that affordable housing is not as affordable as we would like to see it, because there is a huge gap between affordable housing and what's really happening with family members.
Right. So as I understand it, the mean is set. The average apartment, I guess, or average housing fee, right? Rental fee or mortgage fee is set, but it doesn't quite match the average median of income earners in our community. Whereas in some areas it's much more balanced.
Yes.
So, you know, I was looking, you know, for the last couple of days online. I'm still wanting to educate myself as we educate the community. Who sets those guidelines? How does that work? And how does it move from city to city and state to state? But you're working with families, and I know that you, if you're comfortable, kind of sharing a direct story.
Yes. Well, we work with people who come to us, our friends that we know who have shared an experience that we are living proof of. And we find that each person comes with a unique set of, I'm not going to say problems, but
Needs.
circumstances.
Needs. Yes,
Yes, needs. And those needs are not accounted for when it comes to affordable housing. Because let's just say, you know, Marco is selling me a house at $140,000. Well, you know, my income may exceed that. However, my child's needs. And people don't look at the person as a person. They see a case number. They see just a case. So what we see is that there's more to affordable housing than just a number.
Sure. We're going to dip into something really quick, Skye, because I wanted to, if you don't mind sharing kind of what your story is.
Oh, yes.
About how you've managed it. One of the topics of conversation that I've had which goes into a very deeper, complex conversation. So, is as a single mother who might be in school and working, who has to accommodate for childcare and has a child, let's say, in elementary. There are services, some basic services like food stamps and things like that. So they're out of college now. They're finally getting their first real, true income. And there's just a point of pride in that. And she's able to, but yet it's almost harder without having those services, because even though she's graduating, even though she's now joined the workforce, it's just not enough to make it.
No,
Are you
it's not.
seeing that?
Yes, we see that every day, all the time. My partner, Alicia, and I, we see that every day because, God, this does hit home for me as a mom, because when you are entering the workforce, you're so new to everything after having someone walk with you. You know, when you are letting go, sometimes you still need a little bit of extra support, and that's emotional support. You know, we build relationships with our caseworkers. We build relationships with our lenders. We build relationships with our realtors. And oh God, it's so new to God. And this is just, again,
Sure,
it's
it's
so
okay. Take your
new
time.
to us. When entering the workforce, and I hate to sound repetitive, that we almost don't know what to do when we hit our first rock in the road, when we need just a little bit of help, and we're not getting it, because it does happen. You know, we can go from living from assistance to not needing it, and then something happens to where we do need it.
Right.
And then it's kind of like we have to
Right back in again.
Yes, tread back. And when we fall back into it, sometimes it's a little harder pulling out the second time around. So going in the first time is one thing, but going in the second time.
Right. How has Harvey and working with, clients and offering the services, how are you seeing Victoria doing?
Actually, we're real proud of Victoria, because the city government, as well as the county government, and a lot of partners such as Salvation Army, Red Cross. We have 3 other partner organizations: St. Vincent de Paul, Rio Texas Corps, Lutheran Social Services. They're still continuing to assist families. And just like Skye's example, we have case managers within all of these organizations. And so they get to talk with the public. They get to hear how challenging they're having with their budget, because, things like Skye is saying, will happen if they have a vehicle and it breaks down. This is maybe an $1,800 expense that they weren't expecting. Now they're going to have trouble trying to make their rent payment. So the case managers, they'll come to what we refer to as an unmet needs committee meeting. We meet twice a month. We'll have funders in that room. These funders can consist of United Way, both United Way Golden Crescent as well as United Way Calhoun County, the Catholic Diocese of Victoria. I represent a few funders, Rebuild Texas, as well as the Heart Grant, and we have Salvation Army that's there as well. And we'll listen to the cases, and there may be some financial assistance.
You're talking about individuals.
Yes, individual
cases.
Yes.
Okay, tell me where I would find more information about that.
You can go to our website, victorialtrg.org. And we do have an actual need assistance form there that you can go ahead and complete. That'll go directly to our disaster case manager supervisor, and then she'll go ahead and contact that individual, or she'll have one of the case managers contact the individual. We are open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. Our number is 703-5567.
Okay, I wasn't ready for that one, but you're good
Okay.
there. You're good. That's good. No. Because we'll go, but make sure that I go back to that,
Okay,
because I did
sorry.
not realize that was a service that was available for the community.
Yes, and it's primarily for those that were impacted by Hurricane Harvey. Yes.
Okay, so again, it's a very naive question, but the whole point of the small group is to educate, myself, the community, and each other. Who sets? Is it a local government? Is it a state government? What is it? A federal government that says Victoria, Texas, for the average population? How are mortgage rate? I mean, I understand how mortgage rates are set, but you know what I'm saying. Is there any authority that looks at Victoria and says there's an imbalance there? Can we fix it? Or is it just set you guys on, how does that work? Rates and rents?
Go ahead.
First of all, as we're having this conversation, I just want to say thank you for bringing us together, because I'm getting educated here too, and there's so many things that are going through my mind that, like, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this.
You're very welcome.
But yeah, like this is wonderful. Rates, of course, are just set by the Federal Reserve, and that's a whole big bonds, international trade. Like, there's a whole lot that goes into that. But as far as when you refer to affordable housing, I don't know if you're talking about renting or purchasing. Of course, I talk to buyers that are renting now, so I hear a little bit about that, but I don't know about the rental climate in Victoria. What was your original question?
It's okay. It is okay. That happens. It's basically my original.
Set?
Right.
Yeah.
How is it set? And is there
It's
an
just set
authority
by the
that,
market, really?
Right.
As far as I
the
see,
market
as far as
overall.
purchasing,
Okay,
yeah.
So that's
our
stop right there. So the market.
yes.
So if the market is set flat rate across the United States, you said internationally. How do we boil it down to Victoria?
When you're talking about the purchase market, which of course that's what I see.
Sure.
Our average home price right now is $138,000.
Thank you. I was going to get to that. Thank you.
We are definitely at a deficit for new homes that need to be being built for the amount of people we have in town.
Okay.
There's also those two things are set by industry, just population, what natural resources we have around here. So yeah, it varies everywhere you go, and it's just dependent on, one area in Victoria obviously is going to have a lower average price than that, and one area is going to have a higher average price than that. But overall, there's, again, as far as the purchase market, there's no authority figure that's setting that. It's just set by supply and demand by the market.
Okay. Again, like you said.
Well, in reality, no one's building affordable housing in Victoria, and I can see that because of material expensive, the cost of building today, and that's a big deal. But on the rental market, in reality, it's a supply and demand. If we have an increase on population, the demand is going to be higher, and the supply is going to be lower. And I don't think we're keeping up with the demand just because no one is building affordable housing, and that's a big deal. Usually, the market, we adjust the prices depending the volume of calls we're getting, the quality of tenants we're getting. So there's a lot of things that they control the market, jobs, demographics, and especially oil prices and gas. So it's a mix of a lot of things.
Cyclical in our communities, so it's great that we had, you know what I'm saying? We had some, we had some good time. You know what I mean? After having a crunch, but now we've got, we're just sort of, now it's averaging out. Good things are to come, but still, it's just so incredible to me that Victoria. But I will say this: in the very minimal amount of stuff that I was able to read to understand, and I'm just going to be truthful, it still seems like Victoria is not as impacted in those increases or in those ratios than other cities. Or do you disagree?
No. I agree.
Right.
Absolutely.
So there are some that are around our population, but again, in different areas of Texas. So maybe that's it. What are our resources? But I just wanted to know if you guys knew of anything that we could do as citizens to say, look, we keep going to our city officials, to our county officials, and saying there's truly a need here. Is there anything that that we can do together outside of just having discussions? Not to say that I want to strong arm one particular individual or anything like that. That's not what I mean. But who do we go to talk to as a community about, hey, our community is really hurting here?
City council. If you want to become proactive in your community, you need to go to city council because they bring up these topics. They ask questions. They want to know what the community is thinking, how the community feels.
I absolutely agree with you. But where's the change? Where can the change in the ratio? Where can the change in how the guidelines are set or the medians are set when it comes to home loan payments and average rent?
our resources, the resources that we have here in Victoria, because Victoria is packed. We're a healthy community of people, but we are packed with resources that a lot of people don't know about. I was in the market to get my very first house several years ago, FHA, and it just didn't work out. And I'm hearing about the resources that Mr. Vila here is talking about, and I'm like, well, wow, where were those when I needed that? And it's not a lack of education, it's just a lack of knowing what's out there. And you were asking about, where do we see the growth, where do we not, and how is it working for us? The growth depends on the county. It really does, on what's happening inside of that county. Like, for instance, you had mentioned earlier oil and gas. Back in 2011, when we were hit with the Eagle Ford show, everything started booming. The price of living went up by 30%, and everyone was doing good. However, for 4 years, which was 2015, we took the hit of the Eagle Ford show, just drastically hitting rock bottom. The price of living stayed at 30%, at a 30% increase.
Skye, I'm wondering if what I read, if it was following the Eagle Ford.
Yes, it is.
I'm wondering if those areas, like Midland for some reason comes to mind, but that might not be correct. If maybe they're seeing that staggering increase because
yes, they do,
oil and
because
gas is
we
moving
have
that way as well.
Yes, we live close to the Gulf. So we have offshore drilling and we have inland drilling. So people here in Victoria, Goliad, Houston, they will make that 7.5, 10-hour drive to Midland, to Odessa, to work there, and then they come back, from their hitch to be with their families. So they're still working off of that boom that we had back in 2011, which just lasted for a great deal of time. But I mean, let's just be honest here. A lot of people didn't save, that increase of money that they were bringing in. A lot of people thought, hey, we're going to be protected by the drilling. And the fact is, we weren't, because I started my company. I lived in Section 8 housing for 5 years. And my personal experience with that is I wasn't a person, I was a case. And with that came lack of relation and people just saying, you know what, we're going to raise your rent by this much this month. And it just kept
Section 8
increasing.
housing can have a rental increase?
Yes.
Monthly?
Monthly, yes. They will look at what you're bringing in and however much it increases, because
Oh, I see. Based on your income.
Yes.
So again, if you're higher income,
Yeah,
okay.
those guidelines are set up by the legislation.
Right. Okay,
so-
sure.
yes, and I understand that, one person can't just, want to kick the door into the office and say, you know what, I demand change. That's not how it works. We have to go to our government here in Victoria. We have to say, look, this needs to change, and then they will take it up with those in housing.
Rick, what do you think about that?
She's so accurate, because, before I came to Victoria County Long-Term Recovery Group, I was with the workforce, and we were working with a number of families that, were receiving public assistance, and they would struggle. They would sometimes say to myself and other caseworkers, it's kind of defeating everything because I'm making a higher income, but then yet I'm losing out, on some of my basic needs. So it's always a struggle, but I will say this, and Skye commented on this earlier too about resources. After the hurricane, many of our leaders, got together and they were listening. And, what they were also listening to was about the housing situation. And the good news that, we're able to share with the public, and we made this announcement several months ago, is we're building 40 new homes in Bloomington. It's referred to as the Hope Meadows subdivision. These homes are going to be 40 mortgage-free homes. The families that qualify are those that are homeowners with clear deed and title, because you have some of those families that they live in the floodplains area, or they could be in Silver City area, anywhere in the community, and they had major devastation to their homes.
Right.
And so these are the ones that are going to be qualifying, for the program. And the case managers will be working with them. The thing that we're looking at is that they're going to have the income for an escrow account to take care of their homeowner's insurance as well as their property taxes. We were talking about the cost of the homes.
But no mortgage.
No mortgage. And these homes are brand new built. We have the labor that's being provided from volunteers from Ohio, the Disaster Aid Ohio volunteers. They're coming in with their teams. They're going to dedicate 30 weeks to this project so that we can build these homes. We also have Habitat for Humanity as one of our partners that's going to build 10 of the homes. But as Marco was saying, you know, the material costs, you know, for a home can be upwards of $70,000. So fortunately, our leaders were talking with major funders like Samaritan's Purse as well as Rebuild Texas, and you know, we've got Rio Texas UMCOR as well as Center for Disaster Philanthropy. Several of these, they came forward and they said, we're going to take care of the cost of the materials, and as long as y'all can get the labor taken care of. So we have fortunately, you know, the labor handled, the material handled, the infrastructure handled. So these buyers are walking into a very brand new home, and these are 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, and the value on those homes is anywhere from $88,000 to $98,000.
I see. Thank you.
But you got to remember also, a lot of these families, they did or did not have insurance. And me as a homeowner and have damage from Harvey, I had to spend money out of pocket because insurance money is not enough.
Didn't cover it, right?
It didn't cover it.
As did we, right? As did we.
So, and there's people they did not, they have inherited property and they're on the
understand.
floodplain, and when they got hit, they didn't have anything. They lost it all.
Now, you touched on something I want to go back to. You said there's not enough builders that are
Well,
building.
we have enough.
No,
we have
no,
builders.
I'm so sorry. They're not. Let me just finish this. You said something specifically. There's not a lot of builders or interest in building affordable housing. What is that disconnect? What does that mean?
I mean, to me, it's
Right.
that, you know, they're on the business to make money. I don't blame them,
I see.
you know,
Okay.
but
So
the
there's
need's
just
there.
not enough revenue to build.
Yeah,
no,
the
is it-
need's there, but there's not, because of construction and labor.
I see.
You know, it's
Okay.
pretty pricey.
I see. I was just wondering if there were like organizations, like sort of that you had mentioned from Ohio, those kind of the coming together, and I always love those stories. And Harvey was such an amazing time, I think, in our communities, and I recognize the devastation, but also to the community, you know, rallying together.
Yes.
That's why it's so painful to hear that there's still such a huge, issue with affordable housing, as it sounds like that there's a huge issue, or at least that we have that on the table. But I was wondering if there were certain organizations that were dedicated to building affordable housing. That
The
maybe,
only one that I know personally is Habitat for
Yes.
Humanity.
Right.
Correct.
You know, and
I'm going to say this too very quickly, because Habitat, again, making these small groups, I know that Habitat will want to be represented, but I can tell you that I found as a volunteer for Habitat, one of the things that I thought was so incredible is that the community, at least certain individuals that I talked to, did not understand that a person who applies for and receives a Habitat house, there's two things. Number one, that they're going to be putting sweat equity into their housing. So they have to have the opportunity to volunteer. At the time that they're volunteering and building houses, as I understand it, they're not 100% sure if the house that they're working on is going to be theirs or not. But that also, Habitat homeowners do pay a mortgage, just like, most homeowners do. And so I think that there was this kind of sort of common misconception that Habitat for Humanity was giving
True. That's
homes
correct.
away.
yeah, but it's still a great program.
Oh no,
you know.
I love this
Wonderful
It's
program.
a
program.
wonderful
Absolutely.
program.
I just mean as an educational
Yeah.
topic. You are a homeowner. You do pay a mortgage,
Yes.
and you will be investing time and energy and effort into building.
That's what I thought of when you're mentioning what you're doing. It made me think of Habitat, but I think it's important to have some skin in the game. I mean, not everybody can afford or can be qualified for that, but to be able to say, okay, I'm going to take the time, I'm going to fix this or save that or do whatever so that I can do. That's why I think Habitat has worked for so long and works in so many places.
Right.
But what I see and what I keep thinking as we're all talking about this is that I don't know the things y'all are talking about. Y'all don't know the things I'm talking about. There needs to be education. There needs to be some kind of group that provides, because there's down payment assistance.
Yes.
And always has been. Sellers can pay closing costs. So there are people that get into houses with very little money, but you have to have good credit. You have to have known about it.
Right, I was going to
And
say,
not
I think
all
it's in the
lenders
knowing.
do
True.
it.
Yes.
In the
So
knowing.
there's all these things that people they just don't know, and they don't know what it means to care for your credit. They don't know what it's like to save up for an emergency fund, so when the car does break down, there's some funds there.
Sure.
And you know, everything isn't. And so I think that, I don't know, in my opinion, it seems like education is the answer. And as we all educate one another, then we can say, okay, your strength is here, your gift is here. Let's bring all that together, get a builder involved or a few involved, and each one, you know, as they're building their normal houses, maybe they have a project on the side where there's volunteers as well. And, you know, something along the lines of Habitat, but Habitat can only fill so many.
Sure.
Needs.
Another thing that Habitat does a really amazing job at is they work with their clients on establishing budgets.
Yes, that's true.
They work through David Ramsey programs and things like that. So you're not, as I remember as a college student getting my very first college loan, not knowing or understanding truly, you know, what interest rates were looking like and long term. You know what I'm saying? I was just zero focused in on, I'm going to be able to make rent. I'm going to be able to buy groceries without public assistance. I'm going to be able to, you know, do these types of things. I'm going to be able to go to school, you know, essentially. And so it was interesting, you know, as I grew and was, you know, educating myself and understanding, oh my gosh, this interest rate is horrible. And I really, you know, I've got to make bigger payments in order to see these, you know, and it was just a matter of education. Habitat does do a really good job on that. So going into, let's talk about then a solution. Do you think that having an organization or a group that maybe like a Victoria, Texas affordable housing group, where they came together and they offered insight and information, would be worthy in our community?
Most definitely. I mean, you know, I think that, you know, just like Brittani was sharing, every one of us learns, you know, and we go in to gain more knowledge and then openly share that, you know, with, you know, our co-workers and, you know, with our church members. And, you know, whenever I do presentations, I'll get questions as well too. And, you know, so I definitely think it's programs like what you have today. This is excellent, and this helps educate the public, because social media is such a tool now, you know, to advertisers, but it's also a tool to educate the public as well too. So I commend you on what you're doing, and I thank you for inviting us today.
Thank you. I meant, are you going to chair a new? No, I'm just kidding. But I'm just saying, maybe that is potentially, maybe someone in our community will hear this and say, okay, I'm ready to take the challenge of.
Well, we have to be realistic, and my opinion is that, you know, we point fingers to each other. There's a homeless crisis. It's an eyesore. Then we have another one. It's like these people, they need to get back on their feet. We need a long-term solution. I mean, we as a city could be an example for the state or the nation. You know, it takes time, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but something has to be done. You know, at the end of the day, we're always going to have those issues, and if we can build a system similar to what Habitat for Humanity does, will be great, you know, but you have to have everybody involved. And I'm just telling you, church, government, citizens, and nonprofits. But it's a long road. It takes money, like everything else.
Right.
I think Marco's right on the money. I was at City Council this week, and what I saw was, here's my opinion, and I'm on this side of it. Here's my opinion, and I'm on this side of it. And there's nobody filling the gap in, right? Everybody's just, like he's saying, pointing fingers and arguing, and everyone needs to come to the same table with ears to listen, instead of just explain, you know, well, this is in my neighborhood and you don't understand what it's like in my neighborhood. I get that, but also these are humans that, and we need to care for them. And, you know, there's a political aspect here. There's a religious aspect here. I mean, I think a lot of these people that are pointing fingers subscribe to a religion that I don't think really is, how do I say it? It wouldn't really approve of the way they're pointing fingers and the way they're saying things. So I think that having an organization, but having everyone at the table with an understanding that first we seek to listen and then share our points, and then come to an agreement instead of just, you know,
And I think
fingers.
that's why I wanted to have the conversation, because in between all the back and forth was women in particular, I do just remember off the top of my head, coming up and saying, it's not a homeless situation. it's a affordable housing situation, and then walk away. And I was just sort of in that moment like, oh wait, hold on a second, hold on here, because I want to hear from you. Why do you think that? And it is difficult, I think, in our community, especially when we're known to be philanthropists, for someone to say these people, right? And I just go back to these people. You mean our people?
Yes.
And we the people.
Yes, we the people.
And that's the whole point of, coming together to have these, discussions.
Well, I think it really does fall back, in my opinion, it falls back on people who are serving the community. People like, for instance, the directors of housing, the case managers, the program managers, who are saying that they're helping, but they're not actually walking hand in hand with these individuals, with these families, because there needs to be financial counseling. There needs to be just counseling overall within these families, because again, each family comes with a unique set of needs, and they have a situation that's going on. And if we're not looking to contour their needs, how are we really going to be able to solve the crisis of affordable housing? Because we can sit here and, as we keep saying, pointing fingers at everyone and saying, it needs to work here, and no, it doesn't. There needs to be work here. No, we can go all day and we can stay here all day, but we really need to look at the people who are saying that they're helping, but really they're not, because we need people in office who are passionate about their job. That not someone who's just coming in to earn a paycheck, someone who comes in with compassion and passion and uses that to direct them in the office. Because if you don't have that, really, what are you doing? What is your job? How are you fulfilling your job if you're not there to help someone? There was a saying I once heard when I was in 6th grade, was that go after a career, not a job. You go after a job, you're going to hate your job. You're going to resent everything about your job. Your career, you're going to want to help people. You're going to want to make a difference. So I think we really have to take a step back and say, you know what, this is what needs to happen. What needs to happen is we need to help these families who are living and looking to get affordable housing. We need to find a better way for them. We need to build a path for them, instead of just saying, well, you know what, go there and we wish you the best of luck. No, we need to help build that path, because if we're not going to help build it, how are we ever going to solve this?
What do you think some
with
of the
politics,
solutions are?
the easiest solution is the participation of every citizen of this town. But there's politicians that they get paid. Some of them is called public service, and when you voted to a local government position, you have to do public service. Just a tax-paying citizen is just as same as someone who's homeless. We're not talking about handouts. It's just to break the cycle and have the opportunity to people to get back on their feet. And it takes time.
As Habitat says, we're not a handout, we're a hand up.
Yeah, it takes time. And there's a huge misconception because of that politics that, they're just asking for a handout. And there's a large amount of people that have mental health issues. They're homeless. And there's people there because of that housing crisis, because there's a shortage of housing. But we have to address all of them equally.
Right. And Marcus, I really appreciate very much your opinion and your feelings across the board, and any time that anybody's willing to come and sit with me. But I want to just make sure that we stay focused on affordable housing and what citizens need to be aware of to educate themselves, what we think maybe some of those solutions might be, and how we as citizens, and I hear what you're saying. You're saying, look at your elected officials, listen to what they're saying, how are they voting, how are they, what are their feelings, through their actions and things like that. But going back to affordable, just truly affordable housing, what do you think might be some possible solutions? You're saying community members really just coming together.
Yeah, someone has to take
I think
leadership.
that's first and foremost.
Yeah.
Because I think our elected officials, we're a small town, right? We're not Houston, where these people, this is their career, this is their job, right? They're volunteering their time, a lot of them, and they're not being paid for this, so they can't shoulder it all. And then even my mom actually is a volunteer with CASA, and so she works with a lot of the caseworkers with on a different
Right.
side, but still
Right.
all the same story, right? These people are overwhelmed with the amount of work they have, and then the emotional burden that they're carrying because of, you know, their clientele or cases. So I think that part of it is if this is going to be your career, make it your career. But I think the other part of it is every citizen has to come together to do something. And so I think the start of that is creating a roundtable of people that come from all different backgrounds, from different careers, from different, financial backgrounds,
Right.
from everything. Have everyone come together. Again, we're all listening to one another. We figure it out. And then we go back almost as, elected officials do, but then we go into our churches, our places of business, our friend groups, and say, hey, listen, this is what we're seeing needs to be done. But I mean, I only deal with people that are buying houses, so I can't help with the rentals, or I mean, I can give my opinion, but I don't have much of an opinion because I don't know. Whereas he does, and you have a different opinion, and we all just need to get
Sure.
together. I don't think you can come up with a plan without
I
having
think
all
that
the
the
players
call
at the
to
table.
action is, if not you, then who,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
If-
we all need to be held accountable for our own actions, as you're saying. Here's how I have seen it work, because I lived in Houston. I grew up in Houston, metropolitan city. Is that whenever you're given the opportunity to build a business, you build a business in your community. Okay, when you build a business in your community, you bring different networks from outside, and you bring new people in, people that want to come to your hometown and buy a house. So people look into building, construction companies will look into building more apartments, and the more apartments that are built, believe it or not, the cost of living will go down, because then it's a competition of who has the greatest rate.
Right, which is what I was saying earlier. I thought that's how it
Yes.
works. Seeing all those apartments, I was like, wow,
Yeah.
good for people.
Yes,
That
but
was just long
what I have seen is that some of these apartments for a 2-bedroom is starting $1,200. That's kind of crazy. And we need organizations out here that are going to protect the tenants who are renting from people who are, who have inherited these houses that still need some work, but are not being held accountable.
I see.
They need an organization to protect them from their renter, rocketing those prices.
Can renters set their own prices? Can mortgage companies set their own prices?
The private homeowners that they have rental properties, they can set their own prices. Me as a property manager, I just can give them an opinion. But at the end of the day, it's their money. If they tell me, I want this much for your house, for my house, for rent, then I have to obey to that
I see.
as a property manager. But there's a lot of individuals that they set their own prices, and it's what the market's doing. The issue on the bigger picture is also, the apartments, some of them, they get fund from HUD, so that's how they bring I'll say the amount of units for Section 8, but it goes to that legislation level always, to the, on the state that to set those increases on the prices. So,
And again, this is where I go back to the supply and the education, right? So as a renter, if you have a contract, then no, it can't be changed.
yeah, you're set
But
for
not
a year.
everybody is going to have a contract because they don't have the education to know I need to be protected. So I'm going to get into a contract that states this is what it's going to be for this long. But I mean, I've had people purchasing homes that are in month-to-month rentals. Well, in order to be in a month-to-month rental, then every single month, you as the renter have the right to back out of that contract, but the homeowner also has the right to increase the rent.
I see.
So, and then back to supply, I think that's the reason why apartments are so high, right? Is it's all set by the market. If the demand is there and the supply is there, if the demand is high and the supply is low, then the prices are going to be high. If the supply were higher, that's where the
Demand would be lower.
Yeah, but there's a lot of units are gonna come into the market. They're still coming in and they're stabilizing our prices.
Good.
Eventually, I don't believe it's gonna be like this forever.
Okay.
But then if we have another boom, it might happen again. So
Or
it's just
another,
another
natural
disaster. An act of God and nature.
Right. Yes. Yep. Thank you. Any final thoughts?
Well, I would say that, one of the other organizations to recognize, in our community is United Way. Because under their umbrella, they've got 16 partner agencies. And so they do a fabulous job of doing, fundraising and getting contributions to the United Way. And then they disseminate that money to the organizations. So just like we pointed out about Habitat for Humanity, the organization that I represent, I do the grant writing as well as the grant reporting. And so, contributions to these organizations, they will be able to take it and multiply that. It's still in God's principle. If you're a cheerful giver, you're able to go ahead and see that multiplication. And so that's what I feel is that you've got an agency like United Way who's doing a terrific job, and Habitat for Humanity as well too. And so if we were to donate to those specific organizations, we can see those monies go into education. We can see it going into assistance, to those families that are displaced, because Mid-Coast Family Services, they're under that wing of United Way as well too. And they've got their staff, and just like Skye was pointing out, I think in every part of society, private sector, nonprofit sector, you've got people that are passionate about the work that they do. And sadly, you have people that are working the job just for a paycheck, and they're not, really being as dedicated as they can be, and, and assisting the public as much as they can. But I do see, improvements. I look at Promise Point, that's a tiny home community. I applaud those directors. And I applaud, those leaders, because they left Victoria to go look at a community in Austin, and then they brought that idea here, and they've already got about, I think, a little above 3 homes that have already been built.
I think it's 16 total, or 14 or 16.
Correct.
Yep. Yes.
And so Sister Janeka, she's doing an awesome job, with that. And so, I just applaud. I see a lot of progress. I see a lot of good things happening.
Thank you. So let's do this. Let's start with you, Skye. Just your name, and how could people contact you for more information about Providence and Prosperity, or if they want to talk to you further this discussion?
If you want to talk to my partner and I, Alicia Garza, with Providence and Prosperity, you can reach out to us through Facebook at Providence and Prosperity and message us. Let us know what we can help you with, and we're either going to give you an answer or we're going to help you find a solution.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Skye, for being here. Marcus?
My final thought is, again, I would say just to come together as a community. Victoria is very resilient. You have seen it time after time. And I think it's doable. We just need the right leadership to take over.
What about for people who are interested in real estate? Would you like to give your... it's RE/MAX. You're at RE/MAX. We can find you.
Yes, but I wanted to leave business aside since it was a discussion for us shortly.
I see.
But
perfect.
People can find me.
I think it was really incredible for you to take some time to be here, and I very much appreciate.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brittani, what about for you?
You can look us up on Facebook or AMCAP Victoria. I feel the same way. Everybody kind of has said, is that I think Victoria is very resilient. I think everyone in the community just needs to come together and, most importantly, just seek first to understand other people's viewpoint before you want to present yours, because I don't know. I think, just everybody's goal, not everybody, a lot of people's goal is to push people to their side, and that doesn't work out well. So I think that's where it starts.
Well, for me, I think it's very much being in tune to seeing that people make effort, that truly I see, because I just, time and time again, what you see sometimes on the outside is nothing to do with who they are as people on the inside. And I'm always going to want to support and back a person that's trying, and no matter at what level that they are, but just to remain compassionate and kind to to our community, right? Our universe, exactly. And if there is a woman who's working and she's going to school and she's a single mom and she's struggling, but she's making, those efforts and strides, I want to know that I've done everything that I can to bring people together, to have the conversation, to see that we can't make some things easier, because you know that 9 out of 10, if you receive, you're going to give.
Yes.
Exactly.
Common
This-
misconception
Yeah.
that you're just a taker, but often, I mean, how many times have we seen that? They turn right around and give.
Yes.
So, and then Rick, how about for you? Because now you can give your phone number.
Thank you very much. We're located at 207 North Glass. We're open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. Our number is 703-5567, or you can go to our website, victorialtrg.org. We still have plenty of materials in our warehouse to provide assistance with roof replacement,
Very cool.
roof repair, as well as sheetrock, flooring. We've got paint materials from Sherwin-Williams that they have provided to our organization. We've got some flooring that was just picked up this morning, and it's Armstrong flooring. So we're just here to serve the community.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much
Thank you.
for coming today.
Thank you.
I think it's very obvious that this is definitely something that we should continue to have conversations about. I've invited lots of people for further discussion in our small groups. But I also want to encourage you as the citizens. Southbridge Street Live is under the umbrella of the Good News Network, dedicated to educational and fun, oftentimes very quirky social media education and advancement for our community. And so if you're interested in seeing shows like this or being on the shows, I encourage you to sponsor Southbridge Street Live. My phone number is 361-649-1825. So let's further the conversation. Let's further discussion together. Thank you guys again so much for being a part of Southbridge Street Live, and thank you so much, Victoria, for watching.